Hi everybody. In this video we're going to talk about playing chord progressions. Now, as I kind of mentioned before, learning how to play the chord progressions is really a two-pronged approach. One of which being knowing all of these primary chords in root position, knowing what notes are in them, and the other one being knowing the voice leading pattern and being able to apply that to any different key quickly. Of course, when you're dealing with minor chords, there's the extra complication of having to know what the leading tone is, so you always have that. So let's go over this a little bit more in somewhat more detail, and we'll go back and review and then go over a couple new things. But let's try a key that is not in the book and is on the assignments for this class. Let's do G minor. So the first thing I need to remember is that the key of G minor has two flats. And this is something, of course, we all need to know very, if you're going to do this successfully, to know quickly and have right there. And also to be able to say, okay, I'm going to play a one chord in G minor, to go right there. That's something that is very important to be able to do. So if you're not comfortable doing that already, I would recommend that you practice this until you get really comfortable, finding the key and the one chord and knowing it right away. But we'll assume that we're there already, so I'm going to go and have my one chord. Now, here comes the next part. Now that I have the one chord, I have to think about, well, what's the four chord? Well, in this case, if I think about this, I know my four chord is going to be a C minor chord. Now, once again, if I was just going by the notes in the scale, I might think that the 5 chord was this individual, which is a D diminished chord. Unfortunately, this individual here. But I know you need to use the leading tone. Where the D diminished came from. I don't know why I put an A flat in there, other than it sounds cool. But we need to use the leading tone, so that becomes D. I know I need to use 7th, so put that in, and I know I need to leave out the 5th. So we're left with these notes. Now, back to the voice leading thing. I know when I'm doing this progression of 1, 4, 6, 4, 1, 5, 6, 5, 1, I know that the voice leading follows a pattern. Like I said, relying on just the pattern can be kind of dangerous, so I would encourage you not to do this and to also know the theory behind it as well as just the pattern. So if you run into issues with the pattern, then you can kind of dig yourself out. But here's how that goes. So we remember, if we go in between the 1 chord and the 4 chord, they have a common tone, G. So the common tone is going to be G, it's going to stay the same on the bottom. My upper 2 notes move up, therefore I'm in 6-4 inversion. This is another thing, if you wind up in an inversion other than 6-4, you're playing notes that don't match up with the 6-4 inversion or a C minor chord, then you know you've done something wrong. If we go back then, and I go back, so the top 2 voices come down, or back to 1, and then I want to go to 5, 6, 5. So, remember, if I play the 5, 6, 5 chord one more time, or 5, 7 chord, minus the 5th, that my common tone is going to be D on top. So, I have here, the D on top is going to stay the same. It's going to go down. Remember, so I'm going to go down to F sharp, up to C in the middle voice, and D on top stays the same, and back. here's another thing that I did not address in the class, which is when you start out doing this, should you start out doing it hands together or hands separately? And honestly, that's your option. You can choose what you want to do. You don't have to do it one way or the other. If you're really focusing on the voice leading and figuring out what the chords are, doing it one hand at a time might be easier. I personally think it's no more difficult for me to do it hands together than it is to do hands separate, because the hands are mirroring each other, which is one of the few times in piano that we're going to have hands doing the same thing at the same time. So it works out well. Now, you might ask, why is it so important that we play all these chords all the time? Unless you're a vocalist or a vocal music education major, in which case you probably have some prior experience with this, because playing this sort of thing is kind of a useful introduction to playing choral warm-ups, vocal warm-ups. But if you're not going to do that, you might wonder, why is it really useful to know all these chords? Well, the proof for that is found in doing the harmonizations. Because if you know how to play all these chords right away, then it makes it a lot easier when you go to do a harmonization, because you don't really have to think about what the individual notes are going to be that you need to play in your left hand while you're harmonizing the melody. You only need to think about what's going on in the right hand playing the melody and just say, oh, okay, I need to play a 1 chord now, I need to play 5 chord now. Being able to recognize that and then just be on autopilot. So, I would also recommend in the future, when you take a look at a harmonization assignment, to go through the chords in this kind of progression a couple times, at least with your left hand, so that you're really, really comfortable with where those chords are and you know how they are, and you don't need to think about them once you actually get into the business of playing the harmonization with your right hand. Now, the last thing I will leave you with is that it is important to be able to do this quickly in a lot of keys. I know we've walked through it fairly methodically, step by step, maybe in some ways too methodically, but let's go over it in a little bit more detail. Or not a little more, but let's go over it a little quicker. So if I wanted to play it in a variety of keys quickly, that's where this ability to do it and know these things fast comes in. So if I want to do C minor, C sharp, did it that time, D minor, E flat minor, let's see if I can do this, E minor, and just to prove that I'm not cheating by going up by half a step, let's try, I'll jump to A flat. So, I'm not expecting you in this class to be able to reel off all minor keys under the sun and be able to play them as quickly as I just did. But having that level of confidence in being able to just do them like that, if you can get them to that level, it'll make a lot of things, as I mentioned, like harmonization, way easier for you. So I hope this was helpful, and till next time.